Well,
So,
snazzy.
somebody said, well, I make a film about citruses. And you go, yeah, I make a film about citruses. And then somebody says, well, you make a film about you. Okay.
Do it all in the third person.
Sarah McCartney did. I can't do that. But you might have to ask me questions and keep me on track and see if I go off on one, because I'm trying to get this in order.
Okay.
Are we focused?
Yeah.
Is it happening?
Yeah.
Okay. Once upon a time. Scott asked me if I would talk about where 4,160 Tuesdays came from and what I'd done before that led to this point, and then how we got to where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
And because most of these stories, I think, are the best bits. It's the highlights. It's like people's autobiographies, usually missing out all the bits they don't want anyone to know about. But I'm quite keen to talk about the difficult bits.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking this week how I was speaking about a very equally bonkers business consultant. We get on fine because obviously that. About how when you get to the point where in a business you know halfway through the month that you have enough in the bank to pay the wages at the end of the month, I think you can call yourself successful. And when that happens for several months in a row, you think, it's beginning to go all right.
Yeah.
And yet, even when I say that, I'm thinking I'm jinxing myself, and that next month will be nothing coming in, and we'll get to the 21st, and I'm thinking,
yeah.
But, so it's a lot of that. Running a business is a lot of that. And so before that, let's go back to the beginning. So, I was a council gardener. I was a tour guide in France. I worked at an ad agency in London and then one in the countryside. I got fired for being a smart ass. Well, the MD, he used to use whom in the wrong place, and I laughed once, and that was it. So, but he shouldn't have tried to be something that he wasn't. And, my mum grew up on a council estate. My dad's dad was a crane driver. They just learned how to put whom in the right place, and they taught me. So I knew I shouldn't have left. So I got fired. And then I applied for a job at The Guardian, and I got a job in sales, and I soon realised I was not interested in sales. I was interested in helping the whole structure of the company work better together. And so they picked me up and they went, no, wrong place for you. You're not single-minded enough just to get money off people. And that was what they were supposed to be doing. So they put me in organising events. They plunked me in marketing. And I went all over the place organising events, which was lovely. Then I decided that I wanted to study a bit more. And I said to the boss, can I do this in this time? And he said, I don't think you've got enough time to study at the same time as do the work. And so eventually I left and was working freelance for The Guardian, still doing events and doing a master's in marketing and corporate strategy. And I wrote about Lush, whom I'd met. I did some work with them when I was at The Guardian still. They invented a product for me, for The Guardian. And they rang up one day and said, the boss, Mark Constantine, said, can you write? And I said, yes, because I'd just had a piece published by The Guardian on how to pass your motorbike test. And it's amazing how, when it's all fresh in your mind, somebody says, can you do this? You say yes. Had he phoned me 6 months later, I probably said, not really. He said, would you like to write for Lush Times? And I said, yes, please. So I became Lush's one and only writer. And then over 14 years, I became the head of the Lush writing team and the person who trained all the rest of the Lush writers and the person who answered all the queries from around the world on what everything meant and the funny jokes that Lush had slipped into their product titles, which meant very little in Korea. So I was sort of the brand language consultant, whatevs. But then I wore out after 14 years. Because they had this slightly sort of gladiatorial way of putting people in teams to see who would win. And I got put against someone who would have won because of circumstances. Even if I bothered fighting, which I never did. What normally would happen was we'd be set sort of to compete on a project, and we'd just ring each other up and collaborate and really annoy him. But I got put with someone like this cannot end well. So I trained up some other writers and left.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so there was like, now what I'm going to do. So I wrote a novel. That's what I was going to do, I was going to be, and who it is? I was going to be a novelist, I decided, but I don't take rejection well, so I sent it to one publisher, it got rejected, and so I didn't send it to anyone else. No resilience, at least not there. So it's got mistakes in it, but it's self-published. But it was about a perfumer who made fragrances that remind people of happy times. It says on the back, oh yes, here we go, my blurb. Down the cobbled mews off one of London's where tranquil back streets, people come to talk, gaze at the garden, have a nice cup of tea and a biscuit, then leave with a small blue bottle of perfume. Captured inside it is a scented memory of happy times. What could be the harm in that? London is a big city, but paths cross and get tangled up. A small misunderstanding leads to a seriously large one. This is the novel that accidentally launched the London Perfumery, 4,160 Tuesdays. So I meant to be a writer. Some small blue bottles. And the first perfumes that I made were in small blue bottles, and they had little brushes. I meant to bring one, but this is the thing, is that many things go wrong in building a business that has lasted for 10 years. One of them is I forgot this morning the stuff I was going to show you. but that would be typical. I mean, there's no point lying. So yeah, book didn't happen, and I thought, well, I know what. I will write about the perfumes that the perfumer in this, Unity Castle, made for her clients. And then, well, first of all, I went to look for them in the shops, and in those days, niche perfumery and indie perfumery was no indie, and niche was not quite so weird. So they weren't there, so I thought, I'll make them. And at the time, there wasn't anywhere near so much information on the interweb.
Mm-hmm.
But I had worked for Lush, but I'd never worked in the lab. I didn't know what they actually made things from, and all the formulas were secret. So I genuinely didn't know what was in. I knew they told me the things to mention, to write about, but I didn't know what was in the other stuff. So actually no clue. So this is a point to clear up. When I was at The Guardian, I wasn't a writer, because that's gone down somewhere. I've written 4 pieces for The Guardian in 20 years. But I wasn't a writer at The Guardian. And I wasn't a perfumer at Lush. I was a writer at Lush. But I always wanted to make stuff, but I didn't realise that if you wanted to make stuff at Lush, you actually have to go up and beat on the door and say, I'd like to make stuff. I just thought, if I sat there for a long time, eventually I'd get invited. But that, I've learned that now. I don't actually meme into people's minds what I'm thinking. Yeah, so it exists. And one of the perfumes that I made was what I did on my holidays. So the obstacles to overcome were trying to find out how you go from making a perfume to actually being able to sell it legally. I've got to say, there are plenty of people in the world at the moment who are making perfumes and not selling them legally because they still don't know that it's not all right just to stick stuff in a bottle and flog it, which it isn't. And I mustn't get too sidetracked today, but we ran a formula through the IFRA 49th Amendment software today, and it came out at safe at 100% strength. It's like, I am now the queen of regulations, you know. And it's got a lot of restricted things in it, but I know that it's safe. So,
Wow.
yeah, I know. That's it's got naturals in it. It's got all kinds of things in it.
Which one is it? Are you allowed to say?
It's actually for a company called Face Theory.
Ah.
It's an amber. It's nice, can I say. It smells gorgeous, and yeah, I wanted to make absolutely certain that it was, of course, completely safe.
Mm-hmm.
And normally I expect things to come out about 20, but so yes, I mean that is another thing. In my early days, mistakes I have made. Number 732. I would joke about, bunging a load of stuff together and seeing how it turned out. Unfortunately, I've been quoted as, actually doing that. To the point where I have been slandered by some people who have heard very strange things about me and repeated them, and I realised that, well, some of them are actually about a completely different person. For example, somebody I know was told that I made a perfume for my daughter with over the limit of jasmine in it.
I can think of one glaring mistake in that. Mm-hmm. So you don't have any jasmine. That's a joke. You don't have a daughter.
No, I don't have a daughter. I don't have any children at all. And another thing that they laugh at is that I test things out on the people I know first, see if they like it, and then decide to launch it, because they don't evaluate it properly. But what they don't know is that I have, my degree in marketing and corporate strategy includes research and techniques. And I used to teach that at university. And one thing you really don't do, if your perfume is going to cost you about 500 quid to launch, you don't spend 10 grand getting it evaluated. Mm-hmm. Because actually it's cheaper to launch it by a factor of 20. Mm-hmm. So, and we were talking downstairs earlier about imposter syndrome and what even an imposter is. But when you're in an industry and you realise that there are people out there actually telling other people that you are an imposter and you hear, that's quite entertaining. But I don't know why it is that I stand out more than others, because there are some people who are actually putting out perfumes completely unaware of the science
do you think? Yeah. I wonder whether that's because when you speak to people about your perfumes, you don't sort of just you haven't memorised the buzzwords, and you don't just reel off what today's accepted speech is.
I don't know. I think it first started off because I was getting quite a lot of press. Mm-hmm. And there was a bit of a case of that. Oh, does she think she is?
Yeah.
And I think I'm me. And
but like you do and would say things like, "Oh, I just bung a load of stuff in a bottle and see how it smells." But that's your humour.
Yeah.
Talking down actually years of learned experience and careful.
Oh, and yes.
Practice.
Or my. Yes, carefully kept records, and the fact that. Yes, I think I have. I do not sometimes expect people to take it quite so seriously.
Literally, yeah.
When I make jokes about the industry and about myself. I mean, not about. I don't make jokes about the entire industry, but I. Yes, it's. I don't know. If we boasted in our household up north, we'd get a clattering, like a proper slap. So, boasting are not us. So I do tend to get hugely embarrassed if somebody says I've done something well, and then make light of it.
Yeah.
But also I was sort of far too easily flattered into dropping everything and going into perfumery. And this was Josephine Fairley, who set up the Perfume Society with Lorna. A series of coincidences, right. once upon a time when I was 20, our family picked up some hitchhikers who were on the wrong road late at night from York to Newcastle. They looked like nice enough lads, and they would never have got to Newcastle. So we picked them up. Fast forward, we're still mates with them. Well, one of them. We lost one. And they ended up staying at our house because the place they were going to was locked up. They wrote to us to say thank you. We kept in touch. I went to Ferran's wedding in Barcelona. They were from Barcelona. I met some lovely friends of theirs who we immediately hit it. I was round at their house the following week. I went to their civil partnership. I met some people who lived round the corner, just 6 doors away from us, at that wedding, who were good friends with Lizzie Ostrom, writer of the book in orange over there, Perfume, A Century of Scents, who was running perfume events. And she smelt the fragrances that I'd made for this. And she said, would you like to come to an event that I'm running? The Scratch and Sniff will organise one on. And it's called Speakeasy Scents, and it was about people who are sort of off the beaten track outside the industry making their own fragrances. Mm-hmm. Now that's partly where all the trouble centred from. But it comes from the sheer luck of having taken that decision to turn the car around and go back and pick up Xavi and Ferran on the A19.
Yeah.
I can trace that, so be kind to stray people. Be safe. But all those things, just from making connections entirely, completely unrelated, over 30 years that took to make that connection. But I ended up on the stage with people smelling the perfumes that I'd made. Now, at that point, these fragrances were... I was still trying to find out how to sell them officially. Everybody's got to start somewhere. So I wasn't really selling them. But Les Santaux were in the audience and asked if they could sell them. So then, it's like hunting around the place to try and find out somebody who would tell me how to actually make this stuff legal. And the Society of Cosmetics Chemists were like, bless them. I love them. They're just amazingly helpful and pointed me in the direction of a cosmetics safety assessor, so we were able to get them legal. And of course what it turned out was they were already totally, completely compliant. But because I'd been at that event and I didn't know they were, I was like making jokes about, bung anything in. And what I didn't know was there were people in the audience there who were there basically with their shotguns ready to shoot me down. And so I made jokes because I like to. And that's gone down sort of in history. The person who actually made the jasmine one out of jasmine for her daughter wasn't there. But her perfumes were there. And the story's been mixed up, and so we are now in the heads of some people. So just clarifying that one so I don't... Because I came dangerously close actually to thinking I might sue somebody for slander over one of these things, because it can get a bit much. Mm-hmm. But it won't. Probably. But it's like I say, I didn't really like talking about it myself. Seriously. I like making jokes. But Jo Fairley wrote it up, and she said, she smelled Tokyo Spring Blossom, and she said she loved it. And she said that I should give up perfumery. No, she did not say that. No, the opposite. She said I should give up everything else, drop everything immediately and go into perfumery, because the world of perfume needed stirring up and I should do it. And of course the world of perfume was thinking, I think we don't need stirring up, frankly. Yeah. And who is this? And I read that and thought, oh, isn't that lovely? Not realising the immense ripples this had caused from people who didn't think it needed stirring up at all, thank you. But such it was. I was thinking, oh yeah, I'll do it. I was still working as writing. I was still, because that's the thing. You don't really give everything up at once. No. She also said that if that didn't work out, I should go into stand up. But I think that would be tough. But yeah, startups.com. I always listen to their podcast. And they say, they talk about having a long runway before you take off, because if you dump everything else, your runway is very short. You run out of money very quickly, and you're most likely to crash and burn. So I was in parallel still, was training people at Aviva to write more friendly letters to the customers. That sort of thing. And so my runway is also extended by my parents, my husband, who started their life with nothing in the bank and nothing to inherit. So they just worked and worked and worked and worked. My dad saved and saved and saved and saved, and they died. And I ended up with half a house in Geordieland, which I live in Ealing, and so after we deducted everything and sold that, it wouldn't actually have bought a garage. So I thought, I'll stick it into the perfumery.
Yeah.
And it is true. I was fortunate. Somebody once said to a friend of mine who had a very nice house on the river near Henley, said, "Oh, you've got a house?" And she said, "Yeah, but I really still rather have my parents." And it's like, how lucky you are, you've got a nice house. Like, yeah, well, these things come at a price.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was pretty daft and took the cash, and it gradually ran out. It gradually ran out as I reached the end of my runway. But you joined about there, probably. Can't think of it. Maybe even there. You were pretty early days.
Yeah, I think you were 3 or 4 years old, probably.
Yeah, we just moved into the building.
Had you?
The first building.
Had you just moved into that?
2013 we moved in. You were what?
I would have been 2014. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I started.
Yeah, because for a while I was pottering about at home, and then what happened was the accountant said.
Well, I remember when I got in touch with you. Sorry, I remember when I got in touch with you and asked to come and see how you do it, how you make perfume. And I remember saying, you know, I know that I can't remember what it was, but what I envisaged was coming over to your house and seeing you make it in a garage, learning something, and then going home. But actually, it turned out that I turned up to that studio and I was like, oh, this is a much bigger operation than I thought it was.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're still here.
I haven't left.
That happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, some people we've some are gone, but you know, I am still here. Brooke in North London, still here. Yeah. So
I remember Brooke. I remember Brooke coming in and interviewing you, and doing blogging about you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she started working for you.
Yeah.
I remember when she visited for the first time.
They stick, you know. We just we take them put them on the shelf and go again. Yeah. And Sophia turning up for work experience, and now she's just finished her degree and still here.
Yeah. It's very nice. Family.
Yeah. Yes. I don't have a daughter to make fragrances for, so I just adopt other people's
Make
children.
them for Sophia.
Yeah. I wait until they're all grown up and then I have.
Yeah. But never with 100% jasmine.
I haven't done that. No. So we moved into the building. We had to find a building. Oh, my friend Trina as well. She still has a very nice sports car, and we were driving around London looking at light industrial units and just going, oh. Then we found this one, the one which, the greenhouse.
Yeah.
The sun came round at 2:00 in the afternoon. It was like,
yeah, it was sweltering.
Oh, and but it was available.
Yeah.
Light industrial units in London, like hen's teeth. They're not more expensive in London, really, usually, than they are anywhere else in the country.
Wow.
It's just there aren't any.
Right, yeah.
And it's like, because people have taken them and converted them into housing, and, you know, I mean, at some point somebody's going to go, lease expired, I think we want this space, we could put 4 flats into it, you know. But here we are. But
you were going to say, before I cut you off, you were saying something about your accountant.
I was. He said, because we were still in the house, 2012 accounts, and he was saying, are you actually starting to sell perfumes now? And that's after they got all legal, and we were, they were selling in Les Senteurs, and actually, that's when Lucky Center in Los Angeles wanted to buy them, but we couldn't get FedEx to pick up the phone from us. And we realised later FedEx won't give you an account, especially not for dangerous goods, unless you've got a light industrial unit.
Right.
So you need a business address. All of these hurdles we knew nothing about. Brick walls. So Tony, he said, please tell me you're not still making perfume in your house. And I said, we are though. And he said, do you know how uninsured you are? And we went, yeah. So he just said, find a business unit. And we went, yes. So I say we, it was mostly me. And Nick was still working for Heritage Lottery Fund at the time, and that meant that I could just quietly drip through the inheritance, and he could pay the bills. I was really, the 4 years ago when he joined, because I hadn't realised how unhappy he was in his job. There's, lots of cuts and pressure and people wanting funding. There wasn't enough money, and the newspapers, some of them, having to go, and it was just awful. So, I gave him a job for Christmas once, like you do. And then we really had to, we were off.
That was definitely the end of the runway.
Yeah, it was. But then I remember Brooke almost fainting one day when she said something about, why don't you buy this when you could do that and invest in that? And I said, well, yeah, but I've just taken out a PayPal business loan, PayPal working capital, the saviour of all small businesses. So I've just borrowed 18 grand because otherwise I couldn't pay for the bottles and due wages at the end of this month. And she nearly fainted. She had no idea that, that's small amounts for most businesses, but because we don't have any investors, we don't ring people up and say, hey, would you mind dropping in another 100 grand? And a lot of small companies, especially perfume ones, and startups, they don't make it themselves. They don't have their own light industrial unit. They organise it all. They do the creative direction. Somebody else manages all that stuff. They buy serious quantities. It's stored in a warehouse somewhere, and then it's shipped out by somebody else. And they are getting rounds of funding, and their investors come in. The balance sheet is down somewhere in the basement, but when somebody buys them, they make it all back. And everyone gets repaid, and it's cool. I opted not to do that. I don't particularly want to grow. Not much, just enough. And so that's not how it happened. So, rip through it. And we've got to the point now where, for the past few months, we've actually had the money in the bank before we needed to get to the end of the month. And all this is not really about making perfume. And if somebody thinks that they want to go into perfume making business, they're probably going to be spending about 25% of their time on the perfumery and 75% of the time dealing with all the rest of that stuff. Which is why it's nice to have people in here now who do that as well. People, Nick, Amy. I'm not sure I'm going in a straight line, but so made perfume. People wanted to buy perfume. This is turns out with my wonderful business consultant chappie, Joseph Pritchard, he's called. Look him up. Because who do you talk to? I talk to some other people who have perfume companies sometimes. I chat with Liz Moores, Harry, but perspective sometimes. So I chat with Joseph. And we worked out that I've been running businesses in a certain way since I was 7. I would buy a little thing like beads at the time. So I'd buy beads, make bracelets, sell them to my friends, and then buy more beads so I could make more stuff. So that's in effect how I did. I did that again when I was at university with jewellery. I would say when I was 7, my mother slapped me and made me give all the money back. I truly believe this has damaged me commercially. Because I still have this somewhere in the back of my mind. I think if I sell some stuff, and even if people are really happy with it, somebody's going to come up, give me a big slap and make me give all the money back. So I have to get over that. What it turns out that I like to do, business-wise, is make something I really like, and then I want to make a bit more of that, so I save up, get some other things to make something I really like. And then other people say to me, can I have one? And so I say, yeah, all right then. Sell them it. First of all, I give them away. That's some things. And then that means I can buy more things that I like, to make more things that I like, and sell them. And then eventually a shop says, can I have some?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened when I had my jewellery business at university. So I sort of paid my way through university by selling jewellery. I mean, we got grants in those days. Lucky. No. Politically born at the right time. But that wasn't luck. It was good fortune. But that's how I like to do business. So this is what I actually did, was bought a few materials and made myself a fragrance that's called Sarah 1. And that's the one I meant to bring in. And the phone's ringing, and you see, this is what life is like. Nothing is perfect. And Amy's out, so I have to get it.
Yeah, go.
Picking up from the phone ringing. And
Making things that people like to buy more. Making things that you like to buy more stuff. Isn't it?
yeah, and that's what we continue to do. And a couple of times we tried calling and contacting shops and asking if they would like some.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of never worked, because there are thousands of perfume companies mushrooming up all over the place, it seems. Well, okay, tens, but a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But there are also distributorships. You have to be really with a distributor in order to get into a larger shop. And we find that when people call us and say, we'd really like to stock your perfume, that works.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not out of laziness or not, but we're just not part of the system. I mean, what packaging? We like brown paper boxes, and I was told once by the head buyer at Debenhams at the time, who, sad demise of Debenhams, but they said that they don't actually smell the perfume before they decide whether they're going to stock a range or not. They look at the packaging and decide on the aesthetic. And it's like, well, do we want to be in there?
You had
What's going on with that?
You had something else. You had another experience like that with a well-known London department store.
Well,
where they said that the packaging comes first.
Oh yeah, yes, and that was actually on television.
Yeah.
Yes, that was when a man called Ed was running Liberty, Ed Burstell, and he liked the fragrances, but he said he thought their customers would hate the tins.
Yeah, they're in tins then, weren't they? Of course.
Yeah, and then on the television programme, he was heard saying, don't people understand? The perfume and the packaging comes first. It's the box, then it's the bottle, and then it's the fragrance. And you're saying, well, that's a shame, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
He's right. It's true. That's what they're looking for when they're. I mean, and the brand, the idea, have people heard of it? Will it reflect their own values and reputation? But yeah, that was didn't get into Liberty because. But then oh no, it's not important. So we didn't get into Liberty. We did get into Fortnum & Mason. And they had a new section. It was all shiny and black and white and cubic and modern. And I think their customers, I think they just repelled by it. Mm-hmm. I mean, not literally, but it looked very futuristic. And there it is, lovely. It's actually a 1920s building. Looks Georgian, but it's not. All lovely in gold and green and ornate and rococo and this cube. And it had some corners on it, and it was very groovy, but they sort of dismantled it and put it somewhere else. But really, if you're going to be in a department store rather than an independent perfume store, you need to have someone in there who's selling it for you. You need to have someone there who says, "Hi, come over here, smell this, try this," and we first of all we didn't have anybody spare, and anyway they'd only bought 30 bottles. You can't fund a person out of, even if you did sell them all. So the practicalities of it are that it sat there, and we got some good customers from it. I think that's what people. It's why they want to be there, because they have a presence in central London. But
I went and did a day at Fenwick, I think.
you did, yeah. We were in Fenwick for a while as well.
Yeah, I remember going and doing a day on the shop floor. I can't remember.
It was Valentine's Day or the day after or something. Day after. I remember you coming back and having seen the sales manual and it having made you feel rather unwell. I
got into trouble a few times because the security cameras were watching me and my conduct was too relaxed, I think. I was just flouncing about, just going, I smell this, and just not being very shop floor at Fenwick.
It's a lovely place. It's just not really us. And also, what I hadn't realised was, the woman who took us on, who's not there, she's lovely. But they, this is a great, excellent story. The largest order we'd ever had was for Fenwick, and so this was in 2016, about April, I think, 2016. We boxed it all up, we got it all ready, and we said, okay, we're ready to deliver it now. And they said, and this was then after June the 23rd, 2016. They said, oh no, we can't take it now, we're cancelling all the orders. Because of the Brexit vote, the pound had dropped in value. All the things they'd already paid for from France and Italy, or already ordered, had gone up that much money that they didn't have the money to stock our stuff anymore. So it's not often I actually fall on the floor with shock, but I just fell over.
It was an enormous order, I remember that.
Yeah, for us, it was just the biggest thing we'd ever had.
And it was a lot of work.
Yeah, and I think we've actually still got some of them.
Still trying to sell lots of it, yeah.
Because it was 100ml bottles of maxed out and what have you.
Yeah, yeah.
We still haven't got some of it. So, that was massive. So I said, well, it's here, might as well be at your place. Would you do it, sale or return? On consignment, as it's called. So they said, yeah, okay. But then what happened was that it didn't belong on any of the shelves, because the shelves sort of belong to different distributors. Mm-hmm. So this is life in the perfume shop. In department stores, there aren't places for indies. So we kept turning up, and I sent my mystery shoppers, our friends, in to go and buy one and see what was happening. And all kinds of interesting things occurred, but they were always hidden. So the salespeople who were employed not by Fenwick but by other companies were hiding them behind the counter. Yeah. And you get I never heard of that. He said, try this one instead.
Yeah, try one of the ones that we're on commission to sell.
Even on the Valentine's Day when we were featured, that we had our own plinth, and I went in and found that our sign had been taken down and somebody else's perfume had been put on it, and I had to fetch it from out under the counter and put it back on. So retail at the time, if indie perfumers think that they're going to be bought up by retail, my favourite question sometimes is on our Brick Walls and Flaming Hoops course, how difficult it is to get in. Like, if Selfridges decide to stock your perfume and they place an order, how many bottles do you think they would like? And a couple of times people have said 1,000, genuinely. And because that's what people think. They think that once you've got a brand and you're out there, and if you're in a shop, the company has bought 1,000 bottles off you, and you can get a Porsche. And then it's like, well, no, something, how many? And then somebody goes, is it one? Somebody goes, is it none at all? Like, got it, and they'd like free testers. Because where are they going to put them? They're not going to buy 1,000 bottles off you.
No.
So yes, and quite often in retail you have to pay £60,000 in order to get your space on the shelf within the store. It's like almost buying a market stall
Yeah.
within a very, very luxury. This is not... Is this the story of our company? It sort of is. It's the hurdles. It's the reality.
Yeah.
So, do we mind? There was another thing that Tony the accountant asked once, which was, what's your exit strategy? And my next question was like, what's an exit strategy?
Yeah.
He said, well, at some point you're going to have to retire or leave or give up. What you're going to do with everything? It's like, oh. He said, because most small companies in cosmetics will start up hoping that a big one buys them. Like, no. But there's a lot of this in perfumery, people go, oh, but you could be the next Joe Malone. But everyone should read Joe Malone's autobiography and find out that no, there will never be another next Joe Malone.
No.
I think I've said this already, but
yeah.
the circumstances which took her from where she was to where she got to, these things are...
Can't be replicated now. No.
No, I mean, companies will be bought, but yeah, no, a lot of work and thought and dedication had to go into that. Plus, well, she actually started off taking over her own mother's skincare business. And her mother, when one of our clients was Princess Diana, and we know that because one of the guys from Lush bought the brand off Eileen Malone, Joe's mum, before she died. But that's a whole other story. But no, promising people they're going to be the next Joe Malone is really outrageous. It's just a way. It's selling shovels to the gold diggers. I'm really not entirely sure that this is the film I'm supposed to be making. Wait, what do you think? What?
I think you've done it.
I think I have. So here we are in Hammersmith with 1,300 square feet, in a room that used to be for workshops, which now isn't because there aren't any, because COVID. Resilience, is that what I mean? Yep. Now, kind of full
More
of cardboard
storage.
boxes and bottles. So that was a big change. I mean, that just in this last year when we were doing lots and lots of workshops, and that was a third of our income. So now what we're heading for is really the online stuff, this enthusiasm stuff. Because I would like to train up as many indie perfumers to make sense safely, as I possibly can, enthuse people and help them all to set up all the way around the world so that indie perfume becomes a thing again. Artisan perfume, it's not just me, I mean, lots of people are doing it, but can we open it up, share some secrets, encourage people to start so that there are hundreds of us. So then shops will say not, I'm sorry, your aesthetic doesn't fit, but they'll say, what does it smell like? Because we used to have this thing where people would smell our fragrances and say, I have never smelled like anything like this before, ever. And that's kind of my aim still. And it's why I had to start making perfume, because I had described things in this book that didn't exist. So if they were going to exist, I was going to have to make them. And that, I suppose, is what I shall continue to do for as long as I am able, is make things that the like of which nobody has ever smelt before.
You can smell, if you smell your perfumes chronologically, you can smell as your taste has changed and developed. Your taste is, you sort of go through eras, and you can smell that. At the moment, you're making things that aren't like anything you've made before, but it feels very much like that's where your taste is currently. And that's why you have no option but to make things that you like, because that's how you can always be making new and unique things.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think one of the challenges is that I set myself for enthusiasm is saying I will give you, my patrons,
Yeah.
2 formulas every month of a different style. So
Yeah.
we're on Gourmands this month, we're on Fougères next month.
Yeah.
So I'm having to challenge myself to make those, to make very, if I say makeable, formulas from materials which are widely available. Not trying to be exclusive, trying to be as inclusive as possible. So bringing a bit of the things I love to a particular style of fragrance.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm particularly pleased recently with Dandelion Musk, and I thought I didn't like green fragrances, and
Yeah.
I wasn't that fussed about just florals, and it's nice just to have a reason to somebody just constantly poke you in the back and going further, a bit further,
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah.
I still like Tokyo Spring Blossom though, and that was something I made in 2011.
It's not to say that you don't like the things you've made before, but you
Some
know.
of them I don't.
Yeah.
One or two, but yeah. Perfumery. Don't do it. No, but do it, but think at least once or twice before you decide to spend your life savings on it.
Yeah.